It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
The program, we have Mr. Rodney Baker is with us. Rodney, welcome to Conduit News Radio.
Good morning. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for getting up with us this early. And so tell us, you are in the roofing business. So tell us, how'd you get started doing something like that?
Oh, I don't know. It's bad luck, I guess. No, I grew up kind of bouncing around different homes. And one of the homes I lived in, the man was a roofer, and I started doing it weekends, days after school, holidays, and I hated it at the time, but now I see that it was just God preparing me for what he had me to do in life. In Matthew, it says that they'll be preaching from the rooftop, so I guess that was my calling.
That's great. That's great. The name of your roofing company is Baker Roofing, and you see the website right there. You can go find more information at bakerroofinginc.com. That's bakerroofinginc.com. Now, where are you based out of, Rodney?
Out of Polk County.
Okay.
I serve all of Central Arkansas, but I'm based out of Polk County.
So you say you didn't like it at first. I mean, obviously putting roofs on, I mean, that's hard work, but I mean, what was it about it, you didn't like it, but now you do enjoy it? I mean, you're putting roofs over people's heads. I mean, that's a great service.
Yes, sir. I just as a kid, every weekend, every holiday, when you're 11, 12, all the way through your teens.
I see.
If that's how you're having to get your spending money and your clothes money, and you just think it's you think
me.
it's a curse.
Yeah, I got you.
All my friends are at the grocery stores and the convenience stores and the little quick fast food places, but I was making a lot more money than them, but I was working a whole lot more than they were too.
Yeah, but learning that valuable skill, I mean, really and truly learning a really valuable skill. All right, so you've been doing this for a long time then. I mean, you've been really learning this trade for a while. So at what point did you just say, hey, I'm going into business for myself? I mean, did you ever branch off? Did you have, when the business was getting started, did you have to do any side jobs to support it? I mean, how did you build the business?
Well, like I said, I've been doing it since I was a teenager. I've had other jobs in the past, but it just seems like this was always my crutch. If ever things got tough and I needed to make extra money, I would just push my roofing a little bit more. And then in the 80s, I decided, about the early 80s, I just decided, I'm spending all this other, giving somebody else 50, 60 hours a week, and the amount of time that I'm spending there doing work for them, I'm building their business rather than building in my own. So I just stepped out and depended on God, saying, hey, I'm going to do this. Apparently I felt like this is the direction God wanted me to go. So I just turned loose to the other job, which I've done other things in the past, and I stayed with a company for a long time. And the whole time I was with that company, I was on a salary. So I would still have multiple days off. So I was still putting more time into my roofing business, even though I was giving them 40 hours a week. I was still giving myself another 50 hours a week.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So it just seems like I've always been pushing, always had 2 or 3 jobs, when I included, even though I had a 40-hour salary job, I was still putting that many hours more into the roofing business.
Wow. I mean, folks, I just want you to understand. I mean, this is the very American. It's American dream. You had to step out though, right? I mean, and I'm glad you talk about dependence on God. I mean, that's when you jump out there. A lot of I'm sure a lot of business owners across the state that are listening to this right now, they experience the same thing. There is it's nerve-wracking to just jump out there and to try to do something when you don't, if you're leaving what is, a guarantee, right?
Yes, that's true. How I looked at it was, yes, if I'm working for somebody else 40 hours a week, and then I'm doing this roofing, part-time, and my part-time job is making more than my full-time job, a lot of people will think, okay, now's the time. I'm making more doing my side job. But I kept thinking, well, if I quit my full-time job and I start doing my side job full-time because it's making more money, am I going to run out of work quicker?
Mm-hmm.
Being it's only a side job, I've always got that side job. But if you make that side job your full-time job, have you got enough work to keep you full-time? So I kept waiting and to see if my side job had progressed enough, have I built my name enough, have I built up enough reputation that if I do quit my full-time job, my side job ain't going to phase out. In other words, I'm going to have more time to invest in it, so I'm going to run out of work quicker.
Yeah.
So once that side job had gained the consistency, I was a constant having work booked, months in advance, and it just progressed on and on and on. And then that's great.
That's really good advice, by the way, for if there are people out there thinking of doing the same thing or in a similar situation. It's really good advice. You want to make sure the side job, once you devote all that time to it, like you said, that you're not going to run out of work.
Yeah, I see people when I was working my other job. I was working for them, a salaried week, and I had guys that were under my supervision. They'd have a side job, and they'd come give her a 2 weeks notice because they'd made real good money over the weekend, and they thought, man, if I could do this all week long, I'd make a lot more money. Mm-hmm. Well, they'd quit. Well, then they'd get those few jobs that they had to do done, and then they'd be hurt for work. So I just always.
I guess I can't help but notice, that there, you've heard it said there are no, guarantees in life or when you're owning a business and that sort of thing. You don't know what's going to come. We don't know what tomorrow holds, right?
That's true.
But when you're a big business, though, I mean, when you are a big giant corporation, it does seem that that's when the government gets involved sometimes, a lot of times, and it does kind of guarantee and protect them. And I just wonder, as a small business owner, does that ever kind of rub you the wrong way? I mean, you as a small business owner do not get treated like, you've got to get out there and work for it. You don't know what's coming tomorrow. But then when the government steps in and treats these big businesses and does let them know, hey, you're not going to have to pay this tax, and we're going to give you this money, to pay your employees and everything else. Do you ever feel like that's just not very equitable to you?
No, it's not. Especially in my type of work, everything is bid work. You bid on jobs. Well, a lot of when the government gets involved, I've had opportunity. I've done a lot of government work and a lot of local, state, and a lot of county stuff. But there's programs that contractors can get in. But you got to be so big. Your business has to be so big that you can afford to get into this. You got to be able to afford these $100 million insurance policies, and once you get into this little program, that you don't even have to bid anymore. They just say, hey, here's the job, and you get it. And that makes it hard on the little guy because he can't even bid. They don't even offer him out to bid.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. But you can't afford to, you can't afford to take out all these extra insurance policies just for that one job because you might not get any more of them. And if you just do that one that year, your profit probably wasn't even enough to cover all the extra insurance that you had to have.
Wow.
So, all the loops you got to jump through.
So So Rodney, we're talking with Rodney Baker. It's Baker Roofing, BakerRoofingInc.com if you want to find out more. Again, he's servicing the Pope County area. Rodney, do you have any employees that work for your business?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So about how many?
I've got probably 7 full-time and
Wow, that's great.
3 part-time.
That's great.
And they
That's
all
great.
live right here. They're all born and raised right in this area.
That's
right in
great.
Polk County.
And so you started as like a one-man operation, and now you're employing 7 to 10 people.
Yes.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And that's another reason. I mean, that those 10 jobs are so valuable to the community and to that to their families and everything else. And this is why we do these segments, because we're trying to highlight what really is the backbone. And there's other stories out there that are just like yours, Rodney, and have a lot of similarities. So in your opinion, does government generally make it easier or harder to do what you want to do in your business when it just comes to delivering the service of putting a new roof on somebody's house? Does government typically make that harder or easier for you?
It makes it harder. I wish they'd stay out of a lot of stuff. Even the local buildings that are government buildings, when there's projects to be done, you're talking about the Corps engineer stuff, a lot of government, federal funded stuff. There's times that I'll have an opportunity to bid on them jobs. It makes no sense. I did a project here just recently on Nimrod Lake. The general contractor for that job was out of New Jersey.
Wow.
And the general contractor never even looked at the building. He never came down here. He didn't have a clue of what he was bidding on. But he contacts me. I go bid on the job, and I guarantee you his bill to the government, to the Corps engineer, was probably 10 times what mine was to him. And here I'm doing all the legwork. But it just blew my mind that they can bid this stuff off of a computer picture and specs. And I had to contact them at least once a day for about 3 months, just trying to get all the documents and the paperwork and background checks and all this stuff to get this job done. And the general contractor never even saw the building. He didn't even the specs that I was given didn't even match the building.
Wow.
It was specs that whoever drew the specs up for the building never looked at, because I kept having to contact. I can't put this kind of product on this building. It will not work. And then the general contractor said, "Oh, just do what the spec says. Just get it done." But I kept telling them, "I can't. It won't work." And finally, I went over the general contractor's head and had to actually call the engineer with the Corps of Engineers, and he said, "Well, why would you even consider putting that on there?" I said, "Because that's what your specs tell me to put on there." But yeah,
Wow.
anytime the government gets involved, and not just the government, I'm not talking about federal government, you talk about state and local too. I've done a lot of school projects, and when the school takes federal money, I can bid a job for $10,000. And then they'll come back and say, "Well, we're going to have to accept federal funds." Well, if they accept federal funds, state funds, then they have to get specs made on it, send it out to close bid. Well, a job I could have done for $10,000 goes up to about $50,000.
Wow.
Just because the government's involved. And to me, that's hard on our school system, because they're not having to come up with all of that. But a $10,000 job just went up to $50,000. Now you got the state or the federal government with a noose around the school's neck saying, "You're going to teach what we want you to teach because you owe us money.
Mm-hmm.
We built this building." So the government, federal and state, need to get out of stuff.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Not to mention, I mean, good grief, we're talking about taxpayer money here, and why?
Exactly.
But the government gets involved, and it's like, when the government gets involved, everybody wants a cut. It's like, oh, really? We're dealing with other people's money, oh, then we can spend a little bit more and we can kind of enrich ourselves, and that's the problem here. And it's just like, why can't we? I mean, look. I mean, what you're doing, Rodney, is great work, and it's obvious you know exactly what you're talking about too. That's why I love doing these segments, is because we're talking with people who are experts in their field. They know what they're talking about, and they also know where things could be better. And it's like so many of the people who are making the rules that are governing all this, they wouldn't know how to put a roof on. They wouldn't know that, and this goes for a lot of the stuff that they try to regulate. They don't actually know the people and the industries that they're attempting to regulate and the ins and outs, and yet here you are, and you clearly are very, very knowledgeable about it. And hey, Rodney, I really appreciate it. Thanks for being an Arkansas small business owner. Thanks for employing the people you employ and for taking that risk. I know. I just want to say thanks, and I really appreciate you coming on the program today.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
All right. Rodney Baker, everybody. It is bakerroofinginc.com. And if you want a quote from Mr. Baker, you can call him at 479-747-6636. That's 479-747-6636. And call for a quote. It's Baker Roofing. And we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment.